Yo! And today, what's up? We're gonna be watching how Steam became the only good monopoly in existence. That is an interesting take. Now, I have seen people talking about that, especially because I've actually been on Steam lately. As you know, we just bought the game Dispatch, and we've been playing it, and it's fun, and it's amazing. And as a someone who has been working on developing games myself, and I would have to publish them to Steam. Well, I wouldn't have to, but it would be extremely beneficial to. It's interesting to see why people are saying Steam is a good monopoly. I don't know. We're gonna have to see and see if we disagree or agree. But all I do know is let's get into it. Go ahead and like the video. It's by the young man Fads. Okay, it's the first video on the channel by him. Shout out to him. Let's go. Let's get into it. Yeah.
Steam shouldn't exist. Okay, hear me out
Oh.
for a second. I'm definitely glad it exists. I use it like several times a week to buy and play games, and I have a good
Facts.
experience almost every time. But it definitely shouldn't exist. I mean, if I
Why's
told
that?
you that there was a tech company that was founded in the 90s that controlled 70% of its market and that had basically zero meaningful competition, and that the CEO owns a fleet of yachts so big.
Hold on. Who's really competing with Steam? I want to see like who is competing with Steam. Who are Steam's competitors? Because if I can't name some off the top of my head, that's probably not a good sign, right? Who are Steam's competitors? I want to say there's like this one site. It was like there's like a Sunday super deal or Sunday meal deal or something. Who is it? Ain't nothing. I've never heard of these. What? Oh, the Epic Game Store, Ubisoft Connect, Microsoft Store. Yeah. I'm gonna be real with you. Yeah, the Humble Bundle. Yeah. Humble Bundle is like Humble Bundle compares a little bit, but not really. Ichi.io. Ichi.io. That's where I assume like a lot of the I know Itch.io has some good games on it, but I just for some reason like I've published a game to Itch.io, one of the first ones I made, but for some reason it just rings like yo, Itch.io is the place for like super low quality like games. Even though it's not true, there are some good quality games on there, and the games that can't get on Steam, I guess, that are like too outside of the terms of use or something like that. But I don't know. Epic Game Store, Ubisoft Connect, BattleNet. I've been linked to those from games on Steam, so I don't know, man. Yeah, it looks like Steam. Yeah, I don't know. The competition ain't really popping like that.
That he needs smaller support yachts for the main one, you'd probably
Support
start
yachts
thinking
is
about
crazy.
guillotines and not video games. And yet, this more or less perfectly describes Valve, the company responsible for
Valve.
Steam. It's basically impossible to name another tech company from that era that has a reputation that's half as good as Valve. And even just a quick Google search will
Okay.
show you a litany of admiration and good reviews for Gabe Newell, the founder, in a way that
Oh,
very
for
few
real.
people seem to talk about, say, Zuckerberg or
Zuckerberg.
Bezos.
Because
Valve
he's a
and
scammer.
Steam have
Well, not a scammer. He's a social engineer now. Or he had been. It was because I think it's because his monopoly took this is at least the reason I would say. His monopoly took a very it was for one an immature social approach, like, targeting women and things like that. I'm pretty sure that's what like the Facebook originated from, if I remember correctly. And it was creating like unfavorable social dynamics, and it's even further predatory data practices nowadays, and predatory attention seeking activity, attention controlling activity. And I feel like overall it's just providing more control than what it's like. I feel like what it's like originally supposed to be intended for at that point. And I feel like it's just like it's useful for sure. I use Instagram, things like that. I use that stuff. It's useful. I use Facebook. But in terms of like monopolistic practices, I feel like a company like that I would far less trust than something like Steam, which is really just, hey, we bring y'all games. That's kind of it. For at least my from at least my perspective of what I know about Steam and Valve and all that, all I see is like, hey, we license games, we allow people to post games here, and that you got a large catalog of games you can play. That's it. Other than that, I don't really see much of like the dark side of Steam.
Won at the game of capitalism, and they've effectively monopolized an entire business, and yet they are at the same time lauded as one of the best examples of a consumer-friendly product, and it makes no sense at first glance. So how did they do it? How did Steam beat capitalism without getting greedy? Valve Corporation is without a doubt one of the most important companies in all of technology. It was founded by two guys, Gabe Newell and Mike Harrington, who left Microsoft in 1996 to pursue a dream project, creating their very own video game from scratch. Their debut project was Half-Life, and it was so successful that it still is
Leave
today
it to gamers to not get greedy,
video games of all time. And since then, they've released a lot of bangers. Half-Life, Team Fortress, and Counter-Strike are all still incredibly popular series and have millions of players every day collectively. But after releasing several extremely popular games themselves, they noticed a few issues with the games industry. If you're a little older, you might remember a time when pirating a PC game was comically easy. Literally within a few days, you could get free software and bypassed most security measures with like a few seconds of Googling. And we saw the first wave of companies getting really desperate to put the lid on piracy. When Doom 2 was leaked weeks before its official release, their developer responded by banning any pre-launch reviews or external testing for their next game, Quake. The then vice president of marketing even announced that
this guy must be old. How old are you, bro?
The building. Except that game ended up
how old are you,
3 days before its release. Some kid literally just broke into their network.
You gotta be
the
ancient.
game in front of them, and they were so young that the company couldn't even bother pressing charges.
Hold on. Turn this on real quick. Okay. Wow.
This state of affairs, though, wasn't all fun and games. The lack of security also made games way more prone to hacking and cheating, and it was super difficult for game developers to have a clean method to offer security and performance patches over the lifespan of the game. And this is where Steam came in. You see, Gabe Newell has a pretty famous take on piracy.
What's Valve's take on piracy?
So we don't really worry about piracy. There's misconceptions in the industry about what piracy is, that they don't want to pay any money and they want to get your content. But when you look at the fact that these people have, $2,000 PCs, clearly they're willing to spend money. Everybody in the United States knows that Russians are pirates. When the reality is that the pirates in Russia were actually doing a much better job than the games companies themselves. And as soon as the product became available at the same time that it was available in Australia or the UK or the United States, and it was localized in Russia, all of a sudden our piracy problems in Russia disappeared. Piracy is a result of bad service.
The whole idea behind Steam was to fix part of this service problem, to combine piracy protection, software updates, and anti-cheat technology all into one platform that was at least as easy to use as the pirate methods. The scope of the project expanded over time to not just include Valve to use as the pirate methods. The scope of the project expanded over one platform that was at least as easy to use.
Yo, early Steam was like,
use as the pirate
early Steam was rough.
The scope of the project expanded over time to not just include Valve's games, but other people's games, social and community features as well. And well, they kind of nailed it. Since launching in late 2003, Steam has accumulated over 100,000 games and now has over 40 million daily concurrent users. I think it'd be a stretch to call Valve a game developer like you might have in the 90s. Today, they're a retail business that
it's a game retailer now.
But still, even despite that, the world has changed a lot since 2003, and Valve has followed such a drastically
100%.
different path than the rest of the tech world. We can compare it with, say, Microsoft, which recently announced that it was increasing prices of its Xbox Game Pass subscription service by 50 to 100% depending on where you are in the world. Or even Nintendo, which is selling $80 to $90 games. Meanwhile,
50 to 100% increase on Xbox Live? Or not Xbox Live. What was it? Xbox Game Pass? I thought the point of Game Pass was it was supposed to be affordable. That was like the point, right? Even if it's still a good deal, I feel like I don't know. I don't know where that money is going to be going. Is it going to be paying the people that are working there? If that's the case, then I think it's fine. But like, what else is it going to be used for? Maybe it's like uh, further development or something. Whose pockets is it going into? That's what I want to know.
Services. It has a weirdly generous return policy and several extremely generous sales every year. When that's clearly not the established meta in gaming today. You won't find any reviews like this if you look up their competitors. People don't like wax poetic about
Epic Game Stores on iOS,
about EA Origin. And there are a few really good reasons why Valve behaves the way they do. And seemingly nobody else does. Honestly, we can't talk about this story without acknowledging the elephant in the room. Every time we go online, there are companies that are tracking what we buy, where we live, and literally everything that we click on. Oftentimes, this data ends up in the hands of data brokers, companies that build massive profiles about you and sell them online to advertisers, scammers, and even background check websites. And you've likely never heard of a single one of these brokers before. That's where Incognito
sponsor
30-day. Let's get back to it. So right. Valve is a weird company,
get your bread,
not just from the outside. While basically every major tech company from their era decided to become publicly listed on the stock market and solicit investment from the public, Valve has had a really quite different approach. They've remained completely private since being founded.
I figured.
And as a result...
that's how you maintain your business integrity, low-key. Because as soon as you open it up to like the wider market, you become a product of the market and not a product of your business goals, which is unfortunate.
It can be hard to find out pretty much anything about how the company works, but some people have done their best to dig deep and get some information.
That's probably why. That's probably, you know what? That's probably like one of the leading causes as to why they've been able to maintain this monopoly and why the people are okay with it. It's because they're able to operate under like good business proposition, good business value, and not be susceptible to, oh, we gotta pay the money, man. We gotta pay the investors and all that. Instead of being an investor-based company, it is still and retains to be a values-based company. That's my intake.
Disadvantage, first of all, of them being private is how they set goals. A public company like Meta has obligations every quarter. They have to announce and subsequently beat their earnings estimates. The share price has to keep going up, and even a small dip in revenues can be pretty disastrous for the future of a huge publicly listed company. The line has to
going public like that is just like signing the company away to the market, basically. Like you're no longer like running under completely what the goals were for the company. You're running a race at that point. You're running a race to the bottom, essentially, because like you're gonna have to balloon revenue so much that it's just gonna lose sight of itself and in the initial goal.
Up, and the collective tech industry realized a while ago that the best way to do that is to acquire as many users as humanly possible, and then you start squeezing them for everything they're worth. You add in a subscription plan and you can get consistent monthly recurring revenue, which makes it easier to create these earnings estimates. You can shoehorn in blockchain, cloud, or AI, depending on what year it is, and you got another couple $100 billion of investment, easy peasy. And the strategy has worked so effectively.
Yep.
Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon are all literally trillion-dollar companies. Zuckerberg's platform has decided the result of elections, and Amazon brought in $640 billion in revenue in 2024. Even the most generous estimates put Valve's revenue at like 1 to 2% of a platform like Amazon. And that's a pretty big downside if your goal is to make the biggest company on the planet, or to become the most powerful person on the planet. But that's not the case.
Yeah, that wasn't the goal of Valve.
Offers a hell of a lot of benefits. You're only bound to
a
handful of owners who can think on a much longer time frame, who can do stuff because they think it's a good idea. And they don't have to cater to whatever's trendy in the market just to keep their business solvent day to day. You'll actually notice that the Steam interface has barely changed since the original launch. There's no AI chatbot in there, and their changes operate under a whole different calculus, a whole different set of decision-making principles. Since being relevant to Wall Street,
there's no AI chatbot in Steam.
They can focus their energy.
Honestly, they could if they wanted to, but I feel like they're not going to put it out. They're not going to rush it out just to have it up and keep up with people. They're going to like, if they do want to make it, they're going to take their time and make it good and make it purposeful before they actually implement it. That's what I would assume.
On changes that are actually worth doing, not ones that look like what the market wants to hear. And that philosophy has kind of permeated the entire company from top to bottom. A few years ago, a copy of their internal employee handbook leaked and revealed a lot of weird stuff happening inside Valve. Valve is a
that?
company where no one has a formal manager. Projects are completely self-organized, and employees decide
What?
how they allocate 100% of their work time throughout the week. The handbook literally tells employees that they should only work on a project that they believe is important enough for them to work on. They have a
Whoa,
section
Valve
all
is
about
actually
work-life
powerful.
balance, which directs newcomers towards a specific employee that they can speak to. About
Wait,
work-life
what?
balance, which directs newcomers towards a specific employee that they can speak to. A section all about work-life balance, which
Force people
directs
to take-
newcomers towards
Ah,
a
that's crazy.
specific employee that they can speak to if they need more encouragement to take time off. There's so much
That's
stuff
crazy.
in here that would never in a million years pass the approval structures of your average public company, where having power over people is kind of the point a lot of the time. Stuff like nobody has ever been fired at Valve for making a mistake, and working overtime for extended periods indicates a fundamental failure in planning at Valve. These things are pretty wild to see in a corporate handbook, and clearly Valve has put a lot
Yo,
of thought.
Valve is nice. Valve is doing solid work here. I'm not gonna lie. I like this. I'm liking
Creating a
this.
company that actually does seem to get quite a lot.
Valve
out of
is
its
doing
people,
solid work.
especially given how small it is. I've kind of been glazing these guys up until this point. All right.
Yeah, glazing.
Especially
Yeah.
Valve has put a
I
lot
mean,
of
I'm
thought
kind
into
of
creating a
glazing too. I'm
company
not gonna
that
lie. They're deserving of the glaze right now. They're doing a lot of things that a lot of big tech companies aren't doing, and they're just doing it well.
does seem to get quite a lot out of its people, especially
How many do they have? 79 people in staff in 2021. Interesting.
given how small it is.
Oh, fewer
I've
than
kind of been
400
glazing these guys up
employees.
until this point, all right? And in the world we live
Alright,
in,
let's
they're
talk about
clearly
the
not
bad
the
part.
worst tech bros out there. But it's important to remember one thing about Valve. It's not a charity, okay? It exists like literally every other company of this scale to make a lot of money. And it does that
Okay.
incredibly well. The CEO, Gabe, isn't suffering because of his choices. He hasn't sacrificed anything in the pursuit of this business model, right? He's got an armada of yachts and is currently building a $400 million super yacht, which is about the same
Okay.
price as a Boeing 747 passenger jet. And I don't know
Okay.
how many times you might need to hear this, but you don't get quite to this level without doing at least some degree of shady business.
What
And
did he
Valve
do?
has not been immune from that. Honestly,
Oh
the
my
most important
gosh,
reason
no.
why Valve continues to operate the way it does is because it works incredibly well at making money. Their revenue per employee is higher than basically
Hold on. Valve's reported profit per head from Steam commissions is out there. And at 3.5 million per employee, it makes Apple and Facebook look like a lemonade stand. Yo. Wait, so per employee they make 3.5 million? Is that what I'm saying? Is that what that's what they're saying, right? Yeah, profit per head. So they make 3.5 million per employee. Dang.
every other major tech company. And they just like print money with Steam, which is likely the
Yeah.
reason why we've seen so few actual game releases from a company that was created to release games. It makes a lot more
Yeah,
sense
they're
to
just-
just sell other
They're
people's
just chilling. Gaming retail, bro.
games and benefit from the upside of a successful hit and
Yeah.
take little to no risk if a huge project flops on their platform. Even once you're aware of the main factors behind Valve's success, their unique
But
corporate
I'm still not
structure,
seeing a downside here. I'm just like, okay, well, you're creating a gaming platform for other people to like sell their games and get a profit from it, and he takes like a small cut of it. How big is the Steam cut? I think it was like, what was it, like 10% to 20% or something like that? How much does Steam take from games? I think it's like 20%. Is it like 10 or 20%? Oh, it's 30%? Whoa. Wait, hold on. This revenue share applies to both game sales and in-game purchases. Okay. However, Steam employs a tiered revenue sharing model that reduces its cut as the game sales increase. I do remember seeing this. Part because I did a lot of research on it beforehand. Now it's coming back to me, the numbers. The cut drops to 25% once it earns 10 million. Okay, and further decreases to 28%. Okay. It is to note that this 30% is not only affecting, it's not the only factor affecting. I mean, 30% still like, 30% still not bad, I'm not gonna lie. It's not terrible. It is a little high, but it's not like, it's not terrible because like what you're getting with it is, you know, it's being put on basically the biggest and most well-known gaming platform in the world right now, pretty much. So It's not the worst. 70% is still good, honestly, as long as you like make it. As long as you're making it with that in mind, like not just saying, "Oh, we need 100% of the profits for this to be profitable." Like make it affordably, and then what you get on top of it is what you get on top of it, which would be good. But that's how I take it. Regional pricings. $20 game may sell for as low as four. Wait. Regional pricing adjustments, which may vary by country. Interesting. A $20 game may sell for as low as $4.50 in Argentina. Whoa. That are applied before. During these sales, developers bear the cost of discount. Steam makes 30%, still takes 30% cuts from a discounted price. Oh, that's unfortunate. 30% from the discounted price. I guess it still makes sense, but despite the controversy around the 30% cut, it's considered a common industry standard with platforms like PlayStation Store, Microsoft Store using similar revenue splits. However, some platforms still off. Epic Games is a 12%. Wow, that's not bad. itch.io has they set their own. Okay. Steam also provides valuable services, automatic updates. Yeah, fraud protection. Yeah. Yeah, because they add a lot to it, honestly. So, the 30% is probably, it's justified. Plus, it's probably just going to pay the people at the company for a lot of that. So, yeah, a lot of that's probably just overhead to pay the employees. Which is pretty cool, honestly. I mean, I'm not seeing it too bad yet. I'm not seeing it too bad.
Leadership, focus on consumer experience and strong hiring. It can be a little difficult to understand why they haven't been dethroned yet, especially given that the competition collectively has access to trillions of dollars. Now, part of it is just that the PC market has grown year on year. It's so unbelievably cheap and easy to access the PC gaming world, especially compared to 2003, and Valve has been rewarded handsomely for that. And while they've been able to achieve this level of growth without actually seriously mistreating their consumers or their employees, they've not necessarily been as nice to everyone else involved in the game development process.
What does that mean?
As they've grown, the pressure that they've put on game developers and game publishers, especially the smaller ones, has been getting a little bit out of hand. So Steam takes a 30% cut of all sales through the platform, which is ludicrously high. For context, a website like eBay takes about 12%,
yeah.
While other game sale platforms take even less. Epic Games takes nothing on the first $1 million in sales. And even the famously generous Microsoft only takes 12% of sales on its store. And in a fairer world,
when you put it like that, it looks egregious. I'm not gonna lie. When you put it like that, yeah, that looks egregious. 30% looks kind of crazy now. Now it looks kind of crazy.
Of lower fees on other platforms to offer better prices to customers. If I was a game developer that needed to make $7 per copy sold in order to recoup my initial costs, then I could charge $10 on Steam as a minimum, since they take 30%, and I could charge, say, $7 on Epic, since the first $1 million in sales has zero fees. Customers would get cheaper games, the devs would get the same amount of money. It's one of the clearest win-wins ever. Except that Valve is well aware of this and forces developers to agree to what's known as a most favored nation.
What is that, monopoly clause?
An MFN, a most favored nation clause, basically means that a developer can't sell their game substantially cheaper elsewhere if it's also listed on Steam. It means that even if another platform cuts the fees that they take, the developers aren't allowed to pass on the savings from that deal to the end consumer. If a game is $10 on Steam, it has to be about $10 everywhere else. And very few games can survive without being on Steam, given that they have all of the customers. It's created a setup where Steam looks like the best deal, in part because it literally pressures...
Hey, honestly, I wonder if there's a way to get around that by publishing on other platforms first. Okay, so you say, hey, you got the first 100, right? You advertise it. Maybe you advertise it on Steam, but don't release it on Steam, right? Advertise it on Steam, right? So people know about it more as well. And then have it on the other platforms released first, right? For the first period of time, for the first week or two or something at the discounted price. And then release it on Steam for like the Steam price and then change the price everywhere else. Maybe you could get away with that. I don't know. That might be pretty cool.
Developers and publishers to not offer a better deal elsewhere. And while most competitor platforms actually offer pretty generous deals to smaller developers, Steam does the opposite. Games that sell millions and millions of copies end up receiving a better split. This isn't because, I don't know, Activision needs the money, but it's because Valve understands as a company that the big developers are the ones who have the true bargaining power, the ones who could have significant impact if they tried to leave. And by offering them these generous deals, they encourage them to stay on Steam from day one. Indie developers who sell 50, 100, or even 10,000 copies of a game don't have a fraction of the bargaining power. And so there's no need to offer them a better deal. I mean, this is like
That's crazy.
clearly pretty anti-competitive if you ask me. But
Whoa,
from a marketing
that's
and PR
crazy.
sense, it's actually genius. Steam always ends up having the best price possible on its platforms. The customers always get what looks like a reasonable deal. And Valve doesn't bear any responsibility if a game ends up being more expensive than the public expected. The blame falls squarely on the developers. Meanwhile,
That's
other
crazy.
platforms can't easily compete on price and have to compete on other things, which is why you see exclusive releases.
Yeah. I have seen that. Yep. That's what I'm talking about. See? Yeah. That's what I was considering. I was like, okay, so like, you know what? I think I need to actually save this video for future reference. I think I need to actually save this video for real. And put it in my notes app real quick. Honestly. I actually need to save this for future reference. So I can remember that. We'll call it Steam release structure. How about that? The video is how Steam became the only monopoly in existence. Became the only good monopoly. And let's see. To release everywhere before Steam. Discounted. Then on Steam at Steam price and change everywhere. Alright. I will write that down for a second. Just a reference to come back to if it might be a good idea later and I don't think of it again.
As a method of competition. But people hate having to download a whole separate app to play a one game because it's annoying and it feels anti-competitive. It feels like the wrong way to compete in this space. And by the way, I'm not like pretending that the Epic Games Store is like some pariah of the gaming industry, okay? They would definitely be doing the same shit if they could, right? They're just annoyed that they can't. They're actually really annoyed that they can't because the CEO of Epic Games has been on...
Say? You say you a-holes. Court docs reveal Epic CEO manager angry at Steam's 30% fees.
this warpath for many years now.
Crazy.
And the reality is their app is not the best.
Epic Game Store sucks. Dang, man. They could just fix it. I don't know why Epic Game Store, like, to be real, I'm being so real, like, it doesn't have to be that bad. It legitimately does not have to be bad. It could, they could just ask for some help getting a good app. I don't know, talk to, who are they? Talk to Riot. Talk to Riot. Maybe they'll be able to help them.
Not just because of these anti-competitive practices that they're subject to, but also because the Epic Games Store is not very good. And many of these alternatives are just not very good to use. They can be buggy and laggy, while Steam ultimately, at the end of the day, provides a very functional service. The point that I'm actually making here is that Steam has monopoly power in this market. And they're using this power to do what all private monopolies always end up doing, restricting consumer choice and restricting competition. Until recently, Apple did a very similar thing. They'd take 30% of all...
On one-off purchases of digital products, 30%. Oh, subscription initiation, 30%. What does that mean?
In-app purchases that were done on
Apple
devices.
Are in-app purchases.
Apps were literally not even allowed to tell their users that Apple was just taking 30% of the money and that you could sign up through Google Chrome or whatever for a discount. Apple wasn't taking this 30% fee because they were providing some amazing extra service when you bought your Fortnite V-Bucks. They did it because, much like Steam, they have completely unreasonable levels of control over the mobile app market, and they
Hey,
can get away
yo.
with it. And it was a major legal issue
Yo.
until earlier this year when a long-standing lawsuit forced Apple to let developers offer alternate payment methods with lower fees.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, this is basically identical to what Steam does in gaming. Except they were smart enough to realize that they needed to keep the biggest publishers on side and they couldn't push it too far. Instead of trying to
That's
get
crazy.
30% out of literally everyone like Apple did, they made it an explicit point to offer more generous deals to the bigger clients. And
That's
again, let me
crazy.
remind you, Steam is actually a pretty good service, right? Mostly just works, but that doesn't mean it's not also holding an unfair market position. And it's no surprise that Valve are actually currently facing
Whoa,
it.
class action lawsuit. 30% commission. Hey, that's not bad. November 2025. Hey, that's last year. That's not bad, but who are they going to be paying, though? All the developers that are not selling the first 10 million copies and plus?
Class action lawsuit
Is that what that
from
is?
a group of developers who allege exactly this. And they brought receipts. An economist quoted in the lawsuit even estimated that in a properly competitive environment, Steam wouldn't take more than like 17 to
17,
18% of
18.
sales as opposed to 30%.
Yeah, I was going to
This is
say like
literally
max. I was going to say max $20. 20%, not $20. 20%. That's what I was going to say.
billions of dollars that would end up back in the hands of developers. It's not like chump change. And I think we let Valve and Steam off for a lot of this behavior because they're often seen as like a neutral middleman who only exists to make the process of gaming smoother. And they do that, but they do a lot more too. When I began looking into Valve as a company, I quickly found out that they have some pretty important issues that they're yet to solve.
What's
Despite
that?
the fact that they give employees tons of freedom to decide what they work on, their staff rarely stay as lifelong Valve employees. One analyst even said that I've not met anybody who had a career there. They last long enough to make money, but the developers that I've known there have left for
Hold on a second. There's nothing wrong with that, especially in this economy. 10 years at any place? I don't know. I feel like at that point. Oh, because the company doesn't publish games. Guess it makes sense. They want to go to a company that actually publishes games. Because Valve at this point isn't even a game developer. It's not even a game developing company. If you go work at Valve, you're working at a gaming retailer. You're not working at a game publisher. Yeah. But 10 years is still crazy in this especially in tech. I think like 2 years is like the standard, right? Or less nowadays.
greener pastures because the company doesn't publish games. But you'll notice that Valve hasn't actually completely given up on games. And the ones they've decided to keep tell us a lot about Valve's thinking. Once upon a time, they were really best known for single-player experiences. Games where you pay once and you had all of the content. However, ever since the release of Team Fortress 2, an online multiplayer shooter, they realized you didn't need to make new games to make money. You needed to make more money from the games you'd already created. And thus was born the microtransaction. Instead of concepting, researching, and developing a whole
They started it?
Why not just sell cheap items?
Yeah, Valve started it?
Game? But the real genius wasn't selling like cheap collectibles and letting people buy them. It was letting people gamble
Expansion
for them.
packs?
In 2010, Valve launched the Supply Crate, an in-game item for Team Fortress 2, which allowed you to receive a random in-game cosmetic item. Except
Hey, Valve created... There's no way Valve created the single... Let me think before I say this. Is this? I think it is. One of the most degenerate practices in the current gaming architecture landscape. There's no way Valve created it. I thought it was like EA.
to receive the item, to unlock the crate, you had to purchase a key with real money. Basically, you paid a small amount of money for the chance to receive an item that was worth potentially hundreds or thousands of dollars, or potentially an item worth nothing. This is the infamous loot box. And shock horror, it turns out people,
Valve?
especially kids, quite like gambling. Valve developed item marketplaces and whole in-game economies around these items, wherein people would sell them for real money, use them to launder illicit money, or just do some old school degen gambling. The loot
Were people washing money from from illegal sources through Valve
Box mechanic has been so successful that it's
Oh
present
my
in
gosh,
basically every actively maintained Valve title. While they weren't the first to use this mechanism, they definitely
No, they weren't.
popularized it by creating marketplaces that integrated smoothly the in-game value of items with actual dollar value and let people swap them easily for cash. And Valve makes a killing from this. One Counter-Strike tracker estimated that Valve had made $1 billion just in 2023 from selling loot boxes in the Counter-Strike games. There are so many testimonies of former players of these games where they detail getting addicted to gambling as kids, especially in a game like Counter-Strike. And Valve hired leading economists to analyze their in-game economies, and they have a really intimate understanding of this stuff. They just have zero incentive to change things. The vast majority of people who play these games won't spend a penny, except the percentage that are susceptible to gambling addiction will spend all of their money on it. In the world of mobile gaming, which relies on a very similar model, about 50% of the revenue comes from just 0.1% of the user base. And we don't have numbers for Valve, but I don't think it comes from just 0.1%.
50% of the revenue is like, wait, 50% of the revenue is coming from 0.15% of people. So it's like whales. So whales are like half of the game's revenue
of the user base. And we don't have numbers for Valve, but I don't imagine it's a mile off from this. When gambling regulators have tried to shut down these systems, Valve responds not by removing them from the game, but by trying to tweak them and design alternative systems that keep as much of the gambling feel as legally possible. Valve has created what Yanis Varoufakis, one of their former economists, would call a digital fiefdom. It markets itself as a neutral middleman, but it actually has a hell of a lot of power for deciding what happens on its territory. Developers depend completely on them, and they have an unfathomable amount of consumer data and complete dominance of their market. And anyone that uses Steam to sell games is under a lot of pressure to remain on Valve's good side. They're more like medieval lords than they are medieval marketplace operators. And currently they've been pretty nice with that power, especially to the people at the end of the chain, the consumers. But they're under no obligation to keep that up. And I struggle to believe that Valve will keep being quite as nice if their margins ever get hit or if they have a change of leadership. We need to create a more robust system by making sure there's actual competition in this space. And if it's still not clear why competition is so important, you can just replace Steam with any other company that has this much control over the digital marketplace, whether it's Apple or Amazon, and it might become a bit more obvious as to where the problems could emerge in time. All in all, things could be a lot worse, and my experience, and most people's experience with Steam, has been pretty good. But good enough is not good enough, okay? The standard that Steam has set for users should be the norm. It shouldn't be an exception. And in fact, it's very much the exception that proves the rule.
It could be better.
Steam's level of quality should be the bare minimum that we tolerate. And I don't think that's too much to ask.
That was a solid video, man. Hey. Good video, young fads, man. That was a dope video. We might go ahead and subscribe. Let me take a look at the rest of the channel. Let's see what's on here. What kind of videos you got, man? Oop. Oh, okay. So it's more videos like this. Of course, yeah. I'll definitely hit the subscribe, man. Hey, W video fads. That's gonna be it for me. Let me know what y'all think about the Steam monopoly. Do y'all think Steam is a good monopoly? Y'all think y'all should keep their power? Do you think that we should get more competition? What's going on? Y'all gonna make a Steam? Hey, let me know. I might have to publish something to the platform, but that's gonna be a little bit later. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me. I'll catch y'all later. Be sure to like the video if you liked it and subscribe if you want to see more. And I'll catch you in the next one. Okay. Bye.